Greetings from the Marching Arts Health and Wellness page again. I'm Zach. Today I'll bring up a huge issue which will be important, especially during band camp, and that's hydration. So hydration is something that is important for every individual that goes outside of marching arts, anyone, athletes, normal people in everyday life. But with activity, your need for proper hydration increases and is that much more important to keep you healthy. So the biggest things I'll talk about is when to do it and how, and also what tools you're going to use in order to keep yourself hydrated and know some warning signs for if you're kind of going down a bad path. So first and foremost, especially for band camp and your students, you want to make sure that at breakfast, and that's either with the meal or right when they wake up, they have to be drinking some water and or Gatorade, any drink that's going to hydrate them well. So if that's 8 ounces or a little bit more, depending on the size of the person, definitely do that. And then try to keep that pace of hydrating up throughout the day. A good recommendation from the American College of Sports Medicine is with every 15 to 20 minutes of activity, especially out in the hot sun, you want at least around 8 ounces of water and or another sports drink. And that's also depending on the size of the person. But in general, your biggest go-to in terms of knowing if you are dehydrated or hydrated is, do you feel thirsty? Now, a lot of people think, oh, I'm thirsty, this is when I should start to hydrate and start to drink water. Once you've already reached the step of feeling the need to drink, then you've already been down the path of starting to be dehydrated. So don't think that, oh, I'm thirsty, it's time to drink. You should be going and drinking all day long, whether it's water, Gatorade, Powerade, whatever you have. Just don't act as a reaction, just make it a habit. That's the best part. So the next thing I'll talk about is how to make it a habit. So here at the Blue Stars, and many other drum corps use this technique as well, every member will have a gallon water jug, and brand does not matter. Just make sure it's big enough that you can hold enough water for one single block of marching rehearsal and or anything else that you're going to do that day. So things this does, the member will always have water on them, so you don't have to go back and forth, use plastic cups or anything like that at any kind of hydration station. Some places do that. I know my high school did. But when you already have a bottle, you have something that is measurable, something that the kid themselves can track. And so that brings in the personal accountability, which is really the best way to keep this important to them specifically. And then beyond that, this isn't always necessary, but at the Blue Stars we also have a bottle. It doesn't have to be this Gatorade type bottle, but just an extra bottle, and that is filled with any type of sports drink. So Gatorade, Powerade. Here we also use Squincher, which is a potassium-based Gatorade kind of drink. And any of those are pretty much for when you have a rehearsal longer than 1 hour. It's time to start using a drink that's going to contain some carbohydrates, some electrolytes, and get those back in your system. So now we'll talk about what can go wrong. So whenever you start to become dehydrated, you can stop sweating. You won't have the normal facial and body color that you would if you were hydrated. Lack of coordination. You can feel drowsy, groggy, sleepy, just not be engaged in rehearsal or able to pay attention to what someone is trying to teach you at the moment. And that goes for performance quality as well. So a good thing to note is just know what specific student to student, what they look like and how they act day to day. And this can be your way as a director or section leader, anything like that, your way of knowing if that person is doing their job and taking care of themselves and being taken care of by the group. So make sure that they're using the bottles and all of that system. And then if you start to see any warning signs, take the necessary steps and avoid heat illness. So heat illness can be fainting, which is heat syncope, heat exhaustion, and at worst, heat stroke. And all of those I'll talk about in a much later video in terms of how you deal with those. But general idea, you need to get them out of the sun, out of any heat, weather-wise and environment-wise, and get them hydrated once more, get their core body temperature down and all of that. but again, that'll be in a later video. As for a way to measure hydration, this is the best way I've found. Measure urine color. So at the Blue Stars, especially in spring training, we stayed at Waldorf College. Up on a lot of their walls in their athletic building, they have pictures of what color your urine should be, from lighter to darker down the line, and that'll say, okay, well, you're this level of hydration. So your biggest goal is make it clear and or just the lightest color yellow possible. If it's more the color of Coca-Cola or any other soda, you have a giant problem, and you might even need to go to the emergency room if it's that dark. So beyond that, use this closely with the heat index. I know a trick that I've used here and some of our staff do is look at how hot it is outside and the humidity, all those extra heat increasing factors, and then tie that in to how much water break-wise you give members/students. So don't just put a set in stone time procedure or schedule of when this is going to happen. Adjust to your environment. So this is going to be different from, we'll say, here in Georgia, where we are now, to up in the Midwest. Those hydration recommendations will be completely different, and you should modify them as such. So that's all I have for hydration. And remember, water is always number one. Any other sports drink, the Gatorade Powerade Squencher, is going to be your go-to if you're rehearsing or practicing for farther than an hour. So both things are great, but water is always first. Be proactive, don't react, and just do this first thing in the morning and all day long.